Yo, what's up, Libs? We out here with Dan Parker from YGORganization, and he will essentially be discussing the whole YGO network charade, and we're just giving him basically a bit of a platform here to kind of respond to, I guess, some sort of allegations and kind of just put his front forward here. So, yeah, I mean, tell us who you are first of all, what you do, and what your position is, and how you ended up in this situation, I suppose.
All right. So that's a question in parts. Who I am, you introduced me initially. My name is Dan Parker. I run the website YGORganization.com. It's,
Sorry, ignore that.
I'm talking over your bells there. Sorry, I don't mean to do that. So it's basically a website that was supposed to replace Metagame and Shriek for and Shriek because Shriek was terrible. Metagame left the community, and Shriek was just a really terrible, terrible site. So I wanted to kind of replace those. And there's been other sites that have tried in their own ways. There's a Cyberknight website that's pretty good. And ARG obviously tried to replace Metagame for a while. But ultimately, it came about because I had a desire to make something, and I was living in Australia at the time and wasn't allowed to legally work, so I just had a lot of free time to make something happen. And I had a lot of friends who were just, I guess you would call them big players in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, whether they're the owner of Duelist Grounds or the owner of Dueling Network or the owner of the Yu-Gi-Oh wiki. I knew everybody, so I just, between the people, Earl had already got together a big translation staff called the Organization that was founded by Earl. Most of people know him as Pharaoh Atem on Duelist Grounds. I gathered like those 7 people along with like 12 others, and we just made the team for the site. My role on the site mostly is to just make sure it runs smoothly. Whenever there's like a conflict, like should we post this or anything not related to just news, because obviously news we post as soon as we get it, I make those decisions ultimately on the direction of the site and what we should and shouldn't be doing and how we should and shouldn't advertise things.
Right. Okay. That's yeah. It's a good summary for everything. I actually didn't know a lot of that. Surprisingly, how many years has that been running with the YGOrg?
So the organization itself, the translation staff, has been around since just before Return of the Duelist, but they were basically a sub forum on Duelist Grounds.
Yeah.
Like, not even a sub forum, they were like a pinned thread on Duelist Grounds. But on July of 2013, we started like making the site. So there's a couple articles on there that are posted on July 2013, just because I wanted like the double summon list and the prohibition list and stuff. Those are resources that are on the site. They're not necessarily news articles. So I had a lot of those put up before actually launching. But the official launch date where we started posting our daily news coverage was August 1st, 2013.
Yep. All right. So I guess let's go to where we're at now. We've obviously been in touch with this YGONetwork thing from the very beginning. Right?
It's just about the moment he first posted about it in Zodiac.
Mhm.
Sorry, Zodiac. There's an archetype, and I'm watching you play it, so it's in my head there.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you, I mean, before we get to like the whole video response, which someone's actually just posted in chat there, what was your like first interaction with each other?
with each other, like between Harry and I.
Well, I mean, regarding like YGONetwork, obviously you've probably
Okay.
spoke to each other before that in some other context.
No, never
Oh, right.
before
Okay.
that, actually. Yeah, he posted that thread saying like Yu-Gi-Oh, or he called it like Dueling Network is back. He didn't even actually have the name Yu-Gi-Oh Network yet, or YGO Network, as he wants it to be called. But he made this big thing about it being back, and because I don't just represent the organization, I was actually also the head administrator of Dueling Network. I decided, I'll make a comment here and say that this thing is actually in no way affiliated with Dueling Network, and that Chris hasn't even actually touched his computer in over 2 weeks because he's been so busy in real life. and that this guy's full of shit, and I don't know why he's full of shit yet, but I'm going to find out. And
So just to make that like abundantly clear, like there was no kind of pre-planning together. There was no interaction at all between Dueling Network staff and Harry. It was just sort of like kind of this sort of claim of association, saying like, "Yep, this is DN, it's back, etc., etc. It's all good." But there was never actually any sort of plans formally made between you, or even any sort of discussion whatsoever regarding it, right?
Correct. There was one senior administrator on Dueling Network who I won't name, who is a friend of Harry's, and they were talking in PM about how to make the site work. But that particular senior administrator has no actual authority over DN itself or access to any of its code.
Okay. So, he basically, said that we've got this new DN, it's coming back. Did you confront him, or did someone else confront him on your behalf, or?
I confronted him in the thread. I made like an actual post. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was more or less that like he's full of shit and that I was speaking on behalf of Dueling Network, to which he accused me of more or less not being Chris, was his defense against that. And then from there, I retreated to our Discord channel with the rest of the staff, so where we decided to try and figure out what we could find out about the guy, what he's doing, who he is. There was a couple of people who had heard of him. They knew him to be, for lack of a better term, a scumbag. And one of the people in the chat who I've actually given author privileges to, named Satchmo Catlin, he actually posted an article on the site about it, to which Harry actually accused like me of writing that article and saying that the article was just because I have some kind of vendetta against the kid. And at this point, I had known who he was for about an hour. But apparently I had this huge vendetta.
Yeah, all right. So why did you go ahead with the article? I mean, it was, I wouldn't say the article itself was inflammatory of such, but I mean, it was essentially just kind of, it wasn't even so much like, obviously, you mentioned, well, it was mentioned in the article that it's not associated with DN in any shape or form, but like, why were you or whoever it was that wrote it, why were they so quick to like shut it down kind of thing, or just kind of disregard his whole project?
So we knew that there was definitely something up. I'm pretty sure there's language in the article to not explicitly call the entire project fake, because, I mean, maybe he actually was making something. I didn't have enough information yet. It's also a big reason why I wasn't the author of that article. But if you actually, like, I've even sent you a link on Facebook. You can go all the way back to, again, August of 2013. The site has historically tried to debunk fake things entering the community. It's just part of our role in it, starting with a card called Horizon, the Dragon Ruler of Twilight, if you remember that one. Their picture is broken on the site, the card in question, you can see there. But we showed like what an actual proxy looks like, and we like tore it apart as like, this is why this is fake. And that was when the site was about 12 days old when that one happened. So it's just something that I guess we feel compelled to do, is try and protect not just our readers, but even people who don't regularly read the site but play the game from BS and nonsense. And as we were digging up stuff on Harry, talking to people who knew who he was, apparently his actual name is Harry Peters, not Harry Strick. I don't know the full details of that. Maybe he had a legal name change, maybe he didn't.
Peters
I don't care enough about the guy's personal life.
I guess scam people with back in the day on Pojo. His actual name is Harry Strick. That's his real name.
Ah, okay, fair enough. Thank you. Now I know more about a person I didn't need to know anything about.
Okay.
But so we went digging and we found things like past scams he had done, and he had mentioned something about an app he wanted to make that was kind of like Expedia for Yu-Gi-Oh events or for like nightclubs or some crap, but he called it Eventco, and like he himself was the author of it, and he was trying to get emails for that site, not just like pertaining to the Yu-Gi-Oh network thing. This has been something he'd been trying to do for ages, was trying to get emails. He'd even gone so far as to like PM people on Facebook offering them money per email for his little app. And then sure enough, this website that he's setting up, the only thing on it is, hey, give me your email. So I found that extraordinarily fishy and was like, no, like this is just not right, especially since, like he's saying, this will be done on the 19th, and I don't care if he has 12 BLSs on his team, you're not going to get a client from 0 to finished in that period of time. And he would make claims like how Dueling Network's open source, and I can tell you as someone who worked with Chris very closely, he is the most protective person of his code you'd ever see in your entire life. The only thing even remotely open source was a DNv2, and the only thing DNv2 even had was a login screen made in JavaScript that had a white background. So he had nothing, even if he did have access to that.
So just to emphasize that point again, because that was something that was very, I guess, that was sort of the focal point and centerpiece of his sort of advertising initially, was that well, DN is back, and it's, you know, essentially going to be a copycat of DN, and it's going to be exactly how you guys all know DN and how you guys are all familiar with it. And I don't know if anyone in chat can confirm, but I believe he did specifically say it uses DN's code. Now, I don't know if he said it was going to be like DN, or if it actually is like DN's code. I can't remember if he did say that specifically, but regardless, you know, as you're mentioning just now, there's no way he could have got that code at all, other than the DNv2 client, which was open source, and even then that was, like you said, just a login screen. But as for the original core of DN, like as we knew it, when it was up and running, there's no way he could have got that in any shape or form, right?
Yeah, the closest thing he'd have access to is the GitHub for DNv2. Sorry, words escaping me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So I guess that sort of, I mean, that covers everything before we get to the video then. I guess there's nothing else to mention at that point.
I mean, he's done some other unbelievable things and some lies, but I guess a lot of that's covered in the video, so.
Yeah. So onto his video where he, I guess, a bit of a horrible attempt at trying to defend himself, or kind of explain to the community what his situation was. I mean, what did you think about that? Was there anything there that was mildly like plausible, or?
I mean, the first thing that struck me about the video is that he tied his name and his face to it with physical content. So a lot of what he's been doing is, for lack of a better term, illegal. And I'm sure a lot of people knew that. But
which specifically? Like what exactly do you think?
Like trying to make a Yu-Gi-Oh simulator in the first place without consent from Konami is already, or not just Konami, EA Sports and NAS and a lot of other companies, like that's already walking a very thin line. But he registered a company with the name YGONetwork. So at that point, if the owner of the name Yu-Gi-Oh, which is Shueisha, if they can make a case that YGO is the same as Yu-Gi-Oh, or that their consumers could be misled to believe that, then they can sue him for copyright infringement. Then to go beyond that, his website's background is full of Yu-Gi-Oh characters. He's been posting in Yu-Gi-Oh Facebook groups. Like, he's been doing a lot to just dig himself a deeper and deeper hole. But one thing he's had the entire time was the reasonable doubt, the plausible deniability that that's not me, that's someone using the name Harry Strick in a picture of me on Facebook and posting on, pretending to be me. He's now gone to the point that he's posted a video of himself sitting in a chair talking about it and taking credit for all of it. So he's quite literally screwed himself at this point.
Claiming that he is in talks with NAS about producing this program and such, which in my personal opinion, I don't think that ever occurred. I don't think he's spoken to anyone. I don't think anyone's contacted him. I don't, you know, I could be biased, but I mean, you have a lot of experience with these kind of things in the community. Do you think he is actually quote unquote in talks with the owners or anything to that degree?
Well, to begin with, the fact that he mentions NAS at all, again, digs his hole deeper, because he's publicly and openly declaring that he's aware somebody else owns the right to the content he's using. So again, he's got no kind of defense whatsoever for himself anymore. But to go further into what you're asking, which is whether or not I believe he's in talks with NAS, no, I do not. NAS is a tremendously huge company, much bigger than like, oh, I'm going to make a client, like, come talk to me. They also would never come to him first. And even if they did, to actually have like a talk with them. Oh, I'm sorry?
They would, if they were to go to him directly, they would obviously do it through some sort of legal means rather than
They would have either an ad firm or a lawyer, depending on the type of approach they're looking for. But again, even failing that, like, look at Dueling Network. We had got the initial cease and desist on March 17th, I believe it was, and the site didn't actually go down until June. And we took down the pictures. I think you might recall. I don't know how much Dueling Network you did or didn't play.
Oh,
but
so much,
we
so
left
much. Rip.
We left the site up without the pictures for like months. And the day we took the pictures down, we replied to their CND, like to the law firm, and we were like, "Hey, is this good enough? We took down all the pictures. Your cease and desist mentions the pictures are the problem. The pictures are gone. Can the site continue?" And we got another one saying like, "No, it can't. Sorry, you're gonna have to take the site down." And that's when we did. But you saw how long that took. It's just the act of simply replying to an email we sent them was like a 2-month process. There's no way in hell he makes a thread on like the 16th of December and NAS talks to him on the 18th. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just out of curiosity, as a side point, how come they weren't okay with it with DN after the pictures got removed? Like, surely that was the entire point of the copyright, was the fact that the pictures were being used. So they got removed, and then what was the problem after that? Surely should have been free to go.
I mean, I'm not Chris specifically, so I'm not legally allowed to speak on his behalf about the things involving the site legally. I will say that things that are trademarked, one of the rules of trademark law is silhouettes. I'm sure you've seen a Coca-Cola bottle in your life, those like glass ones. If you take a silhouette of that and show it to someone, they will tell you that it's Coca-Cola. And because of that, no other company is allowed to actually use that shape of bottle. Even if they make it out of paper instead, it doesn't actually matter. It still belongs to Coke at that point.
So the silhouette of what exactly became problematic at that point? Simply the cards itself? Like
they obviously don't own the rights to a black rectangle, but I can't say much more than that because I don't represent Dueling Network, and of course, as far as legal proceedings go, they've not come after us. They haven't actually sued us. It's just a cease and desist or else we'll come after you, and I'd rather not do anything to antagonize them.
Okay, that's fair enough. So on to, I guess, one of the more final points regarding what he specifically said in that video. In the chat, I can see there's a lot of people here, so feel free to, ask any questions to Dan. I mean, he's got a lot of experience in the Yu-Gi-Oh community as part of YGOrganization, and obviously he does know a fair amount about this particular charade since, well, he's been directly involved with it. So make sure you guys just throw out some questions, and I'm sure he'll be happy to ask while we get to the final part here. So I'm just going to ask you about the point in his video where I guess he referred to you as not you specifically, he referred to YGOrganization and me actually as a corrupt media. Did you want to respond to that?
I mean, he did mention me specifically. He said Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization and Dan.
Oh yeah, he did mention you by name actually. Yeah.
Yeah. As someone who's hated him for a while, I believe was the exact quote. And as I mentioned, I've known who this person is for almost never.
To be fair, I think he was mostly referring to me at that point.
Ah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, to call my site corrupt media is obviously slander, and I'll just go ahead and say bullshit. I think everyone knew that, though. My site is one of those ones that very successfully can speak for itself. Anyone who comes to my site immediately, as soon as they look at it, can tell it's not like corrupt. It's not doing anything to harm them. I'm not trying to even sell you anything. I'm not asking for anything. There's no way to sign up for the site. I don't want like any of your information. We have a forum, I guess. So technically I'm asking for you to register on my forum, but even then I've never actually gone to the point of saying, hey, sign up for the forums, just something that's there. I honestly have no idea what makes him think we're corrupt media, except that using words like that will ring in people's head and try and make them believe his claims.
I'm trying to be as unbiased and sort of kind of fair to each argument as much as I can, but I can't really think of anything that would suggest that there is quote unquote corruption at play. Like, I mean, it's not like you guys are a mouthpiece for Konami of any sort. I don't think you guys have any official affiliations with Konami or NES or anything that would ever suggest that, really. I mean, trying to be as fair as I can here, I can't really see that as being anything more than just bitterness, you know, like just lashing out.
Yeah. Are you playing Zombie Fluffle Burning Abyss? What the hell?
I'm just spectating, like random duels.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, do you think there's any sort of like, is there any reason for him to like, is there any sort of, you're obviously going to say no, I would assume, but anything at all, any sort of grounds at all for that to be somewhat, even in the slightest shape or form, justified?
Yeah, no. There's no justification for the claim. There's desperation, but not justification.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I guess that's everything pretty much covered for this whole thing. I'm just gonna get to some of the questions now. There's not really too much stuff asked. I guess everything's pretty much been covered. Is there any final points or any sort of like thing that you missed or wanted to go back and talk a little bit more about?
I mean, I'm not exactly happy he called me CNN. That was kind of a low blow.
Trump supporter confirmed.
Oh yeah, his wall was full of Trump support and stuff. I mean, like, even the video he posted today mentioned like Konami again. Konami has absolutely nothing to do with this, and like that goes back to the Dueling Network thing too. The only thing Konami owns is the license to print the cards. They don't own anything else. They don't own the artworks. They don't own the rule book. They don't own like anything except for, hey, we're the company that's allowed to like print and ship these to stores. And I think, but I'm not 100% sure, that they own the card back image because it has like the Konami logo at the top left there. And Dueling Network, we did use those initially and we were told we can't. But that was like back in like May of 2012, I think Dueling Network opened. It was a long freaking time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yu-Gi-Oh's rights are split pretty dramatically. People look at it like, oh, like Magic the Gathering makes like this much money. Why is Konami not making like that much money? And like you can look at like Konami's quarterly earnings. They publish them, and it has things like Yu-Gi-Oh making less money than Metal Gear Solid when that's not even close to true. But a big reason for it is that obviously Kazuki Takahashi himself still owns the rights to the game, and then Shueisha owns the rights to the series itself, like the manga, and then NAS and TV Tokyo own the rights to the Asian broadcast, and Daewon owns the rights to distribution in Korea, and Konami owns the rights to distribution in the 3 territories, and 4Kids, or 4K Media now, because Konami actually bought them, but they have the publishing rights to the anime in America. And then EA Games actually owns the rights to the video games. So even if he was actually in talks with anyone about making his little online simulator game legal, it would actually be EA, which is a company he's never once mentioned.
Right. That makes sense. What is so bureaucratic? Like, it's like a one pie that's owned by like 50 different people. It's crazy.
Well, it's mostly to get it into those areas. Like, oh, you have a TV program, you have the anime. A company in North America says, hey, look how successful Pokemon is. We want more animes. So they look over to Shueisha and TV Tokyo in Japan and be like, what are your most popular animes? Yu-Gi-Oh? Oh, we want that. Here's money for the rights to it. We'll translate it and dump it to American consumers.
Yeah. Well, I guess that makes sense. So on to some questions and stuff, if you don't have anything else that you want to touch upon.
No, I'm happy to answer questions.
Yep. So let's see. We don't actually have too much here. Let's see. what would it take? Again, a lot of this is kind of mostly related to DN because I think we did get sidetracked by it, but I guess the community is mostly interested in that.
I'm okay to answer DN questions.
What would it take to make a site like DN again? As of now, we have YGO Pro, Dawn of Dev Pro, Dawn and Dev Pro. Why are they still up, and why did they take the best one down?
I appreciate being called the best one. That's nice. But so to make a site like DN is simple enough. Obviously, what it would take to make one is someone to just sit down and make it. It's a website. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro was actually taken down. A lot of them were. The thing that isn't taken down is obviously the program's ability to connect to the internet, but you don't go to their website and download it anymore. And that's the biggest it was the biggest strength, but also ultimately the biggest weakness of Dueling Network was that it was in browser. So while you didn't have to download anything and people didn't have to like worry about viruses or just bad computers in general, it also meant that if the website itself, Dueling Network, got taken down, it was kaput. And like I can tell you right now, but please don't email us and ask for them. Dueling Network is still there. There's just like Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, like you can connect to Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro if you already have it. There's just no way to actually connect to Dueling Network, but it's still there. A database still exists. All of your deck lists are still there. If we were to find a way to successfully make DNV2 legally, which obviously there's no concrete way to do, technically your login information and all your decks and stuff would still be there. You'd still be able to log in as usual and all your decks would still be there. Nothing's actually like deleted. We've been thinking, and again, I've actually been talking to a lawyer myself about this one. What we want to do as an informational source, which would be protected under fair use laws as long as we do it properly, is make a website where you can go to it, and again, you'd be able to log in and access your decks. You just wouldn't be able to duel on it. So it would be kind of like an interactive Wikia. You'd still be able to search, and you'd still be able to deck build, and your already existing decks would still be there. But a big limitation on that is that Chris himself, not to out too much of his personal life, but he works about 100 hours a week. He's a very, very busy guy. So we only work on this on weekends. And if you take a look at a calendar, the last couple weekends have featured such events as Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. So it's been pretty hectic, especially when he only gets like an hour or two to work on it.
A good point raised here is how come you don't just make a dn.exe?
Because if a big reason why Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro's not had someone arrested is that they have no idea who made Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro.exe, but Chris's name is tied to Dueling Network, and he's legally responsible for anything that happens to it. So if someone were to make a dn.exe and connect it to his server, then he would be legally liable for it, and it would violate the C&D, and they'd garnish his wages for the rest of his life.
I don't believe that that's why YGO Pro isn't taken down. I think it's because of the fact that it's all client side. So because the images and stuff aren't hosted on a website or aren't out there kind of thing, that makes it okay, apparently.
They still distribute the images. You go to their site and you download the client and you download the images from their server, which means they're illegally hosting them and providing them and distributing them.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's interesting. Let's see. Do you have any information about Dueling Book?
I do. I do. Obviously, as someone who's one of the head administrators of DN, I obviously know Steven pretty well. Or I guess ex-Steven, depends how you want to read that. So Dueling Network is... not Dueling Network, wow. Dueling Book is... I don't want to like say it's a joke, because every time I do, he goes back and works on it more. He like it's not a joke. Watch, see, it's real. Look, this is my new update. Every time someone calls it fake, he does a little bit more on it, and then he stops again, and then someone will call it fake, and he'll do a little bit more. He's like, here's a screenshot. Look, we've got like a card database now. It's real. And then like 2 weeks goes by, and people just forget about it. And then someone says like, hey, what happened to Dueling Book? And someone says, oh, it was fake. It's gone now. And he'll be like, oh, look, I'll go quickly code like the deck constructor now. Hey, look, it's real. But it's never going to actually launch. it's a joke based on the book part of it is Facebook. It's a Dueling Book. It's literally Facebook, Dueling Network, and Grinder of all things. It's actually the joke behind it. It's supposed to be like a gay Yu-Gi-Oh player meetup social network dueling site.
Okay.
Is the idea behind it.
So I mean, you said there it's a joke. I mean, is that it? Like, is there?
Yeah, it's not. It's like it's a troll, but it's a troll for the sake of trolling. Like I said, like every time someone calls it fake, he gets to reopen the troll and do it again and keep the story going for another like week of like, hey, look, there's another update. If he were to ever actually finish it, it would just be something he did on his free time for fun, and he would release it, and if everyone would join. It would be like, which type of men are you interested in? Would be the login screen info, like when you're making your profile.
So I mean, realistically, like if somehow this comes to fruition, this troll that gets like, what's the word? I guess berated enough by the community that he just ends up making it because of how. As you were saying, like if someone calls it a troll, he just keeps working on it. So eventually, if he gets called a troll enough, and this ends up working somehow, it's just gonna face the same problems as DN, isn't it? Where like, well,
Yeah, absolutely. It will exist for like a day, troll everyone, and then get taken down by quote unquote NAS. Like it would just like open and shut. But as I said, like making a client, it's a huge project. Like you cannot imagine it until you try it. You can think you can imagine it, like, oh, like it must take like 10,000 hours and this many lines of code, and you have to like lock yourself in a room in the dark with headphones and lock into the computer. No, it's worse. It's actually worse than you think. It's horrible.
Okay. I guess that's pretty much it for most of the legit questions here. I guess, do you know anything about Advanced Dual Shell? I think
I heard about Advanced Dual Shell and Dueling Nexus, I believe it's called. Those two, one of them, and I don't actually know which, is being worked on by a former DN admin, although technically none of them were fired. Again, they would all still retain their administrator roles, but one of them, I think his name is like Francexi or Francexi, like the word France with XI on the end. He's making one of the two. I don't remember which, but I can't say anything bad about any of the admins we had at the end there. So I haven't personally looked into them too much because they aren't presenting like an active threat to the game, and they're so far away from being done that I don't have to make sure they're being presented properly or anything. So maybe they'll be good. Maybe they'll flop and never get finished, but they're not. Until they get a lot further along, they're not worth me investing my time into to learn about.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's see. So, is there a sufficient difference between a generic TCG program that is done entirely client-side and a DN type of thing to prevent the former legal action?
I think there's a program called Untap that's like entirely client-side, and it has Yu-Gi-Oh on it. I'm pretty sure that's not violating any laws, and I think there's actually like a dedicated group of people who have been adding Yu-Gi-Oh cards to it, so that's something you guys could check out if you really wanted to.
What's it called? Untap?
Yeah, it was primarily for Magic, hence the name, but it allows you to add cards from like any game to it. I think they're at the very least being petitioned to have like official Yu-Gi-Oh support on it, but at the very least you can add Yu-Gi-Oh cards to it.
Okay, yeah. Why is Konami allowed to produce the games when they only have the rights to the prints?
I assume it has something to do with the distribution agreements they have, but without actually being a lawyer at Konami, I can't answer that concretely. I haven't seen their contracts or anything.
Why did NAS decide out of the blue to take everything down? Because I mean, DN was running for years, and then just out of nowhere, they suddenly had the problem with it.
There's three possible explanations to that. One of the three is the answer, but I don't know which. The first one, obviously, being that they didn't know about it until then. That's the least likely. I can't imagine it actually could be around for years and have millions of players. and I want to emphasize millions. There was 3.2 million active, as in logged in within that quarter, active accounts on Dueling Network when it was taken down, compared to Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro's at the time 31,000 total downloads. Like, Dueling Network was massive, unbelievably huge, and for them to not know about it, I think, is extremely unlikely. The second one would be the release of Duel Links, and the third would be Legacy of the Duelist coming to PC. So both of these would have the same caveat ultimately, which is, in order for you to legally own your copyright, you have to proactively protect it. If you are aware that someone is infringing on your copyright and you do nothing about it, you actually lose that copyright. You no longer own the rights to your own thing anymore. So with the release of PC Yu-Gi-Oh! Games like Duel Links and Legacy of the Duelist, it would then tie their hands at that point that if they didn't come after us, they would lose the ability to come after people, period.
So you're kind of saying like it was sort of just as a statement more than anything that they had to do something about it?
To protect their own copyright. Like, they're more or less legally bound to come after us at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe is the reason. The other case could be, again, that they just somehow didn't know Dueling Network existed for the first 4 years it was up.
Yeah, which again, as you said, seems pretty unlikely. Did you guys make any money off DN, or how did all those extra donations go to? What happened to like extra donations once they paid for the server?
Okay, so obviously I didn't. The staff of DN was entirely volunteer based, so thanks very much for all of your complaints and hatred for us, guys. Real classy. But Dueling Network was not legally allowed to make money, obviously, but donations are not income. So I've seen a couple of the numbers involved in DN because I'm in Canada. So NASA's little New York law firm they had that came after Chris, that doesn't actually apply to me. If I were to give Chris $1 and buy DN, I could host it in Canada, and then NASA would have to get a Canadian law firm. They would come after me, and Dueling Network would exist for like 2 to 3 months. And then I could sell it to someone in England for $1, and we could daisy chain it around the planet. But ultimately, like, it's not as simple as host a server in Thailand, to use a certain example, because I myself am still in Canada. So even though the site wouldn't get taken down, I could still be actioned against. So I would have to also move to Thailand, and I don't want to do that because Thailand sucks compared to Canada. But I lost my train. Oh yeah, money that Dueling Network makes. The donations did not actually cover the costs of operation for DN. It did for a while, but as DN started to get larger and larger, if the TCG and OCG list didn't separate, Dueling Network was going to have to close. The severance of the Forbidden and Limited list between the TCG and the OCG, where they still had like Shockmaster legal for ages when we didn't, and I led to believe that that's because Shueisha makes that card. Same reason why they would have Stratos and a whole bunch of other nonsense they still have over there. But like Super Poly, I keep getting off track. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When we separated the OCG from the TCG, if you played Dueling Network that long ago, you might remember you couldn't even log in because we were at the user cap. Too many people online. And that's because we had so many people from Japan also playing. Dueling Network was about 80% Japanese players at that point. So when we stopped supporting the OCG list, about 80% of our active players stopped using the game. And that's why it dropped to like the 5,000 number. We could not afford a server that could hold 9,000 people. We couldn't even afford the one that was holding 8,000 people, and the admins that were logging in were not even counting towards that 8,000 number. Every single person who logs in had to load 5,000 card images at the time. It's 7,000 now. Every time you log in and go to like the deck constructor, you notice the images didn't load right away. They would like load them on a need to see basis. Is because there's 4,000 people and they all have to load all of the images, and it's insane. It was I can't. He told me the exact number. I think it was like a terabyte a week of information Dueling Network was using. It was massive. So the donations were to help keep it open. Dueling Network was ultimately a college project that BLS did. He made it for fun to see if he could in college. It was never something he wanted to like do for a living. He had no like financial incentive to keep it open, and the donations basically supplemented the cost as just him doing a favor to Yu-Gi-Oh players, keeping it as an option for them to play. When he got like the C and D, he's like, I'm not gonna like go to court over a college project. Like that's not gonna happen. But he never actually like profited from it ever. That never happened. And if the Japanese didn't leave the site would have just died, because people were not playing due to the not being able to log in, like just being locked out, and Japanese players were actually keeping themselves logged in at that point because they were facing the same problem. So a bigger and bigger share of the online players were Japanese, and if it got to the point where less than 1,000 of the people playing were even American in the first place, he would take the site down because he was not making it so a bunch of Japanese people could tie up all his bandwidth and not donate, because none of them ever did.
Okay. Well, yeah, that doesn't seem like there's any real plausible workarounds for it then. Legally, it seems, I mean, even if you were to move away, I'm sure they'd get you somehow.
Well, I mean, when I found out, as I mentioned, like Strick made his thread, and the first thing I said was, it doesn't matter where he hosts his server, he himself would have to be in a place such as Thailand. So you can imagine my surprise when the very first thing I'm told is the guy frickin' lives in Thailand. Like, what the hell is he doing there? But I mean, that's his choice. But that was a big reason why I didn't just immediately come out with an article and be like, this is bullshit and here's why. Satchmo made one that says, this is very extremely likely to be bullshit and here's why. But like our full list of reasons about like the event co thing and like all this other nonsense didn't immediately come to surface because the guy himself actually was in a non-extradition territory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's all it for the questions, I think. Oh, there's actually one more good one here. Since DN 2.0 isn't coming, Dueling Book is a troll, YGONetwork is nothing more than a WordPress blog at this stage. What's the future for online database-based, online web browser-based Yu-Gi-Oh, do you think?
I like how you censored this question. That was great.
I know.
I'm also just going to quickly mention, because people are going to see the stream here and stuff, that's not how you spell my website. There's one O and it's a Z. It's just YGORganization, not Yu-Gi-Oh organization.
Whoops.
But no, that's fine. It's actually a more common mistake than I thought it was going to be. Ultimate regret, like biggest mistake I've made on the site so far has been the name. But I should not have taken a word that's spelled two different ways in two different territories, and I should not have tried to use only one O like that. But to get back to the question, since Dueling 2.0 is not coming, it actually still might, but if it does, as I said, it would just be an online library. Dueling Book is a troll. It's one of the greatest I've ever seen. And the site I'm sick of hearing about is illegal and fake. You forgot fake. What's the future hold for online databases? So the future of online databases, obviously people are working on like that dual shell thing and Nexus. If there is a way to do it, I will. As I mentioned, I talk to lawyers a lot because of my site. I actually have every Tuesday I get to sit down with a lawyer for an hour for free. It's just something that's available here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So I bounced different ideas off them. Am I allowed to like sell this? Am I allowed to garner that? How can I work with these advertisers? A lot of the reason Yu-Gi Organization stays open is obviously the ads that are on the site. So you can only imagine, like, card market over there is British and they're paying me in pounds. How do I pay taxes on that? Stuff like that comes up a lot. So every now and then I get a new idea. Like, hey, what if I make a site that is browser-based but doesn't have any of the pictures, and then somebody else hosts a website that has the pictures, and they can direct the client to see the pictures on it, which Dueling Network tried to get away with, and it's totally legal, but NAS disagreed. So I would have to go to court, and assuming my lawyer is right and good enough, we'd actually have won that court case, apparently, but it would cost me hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in legal fees that I didn't feel like paying, just to potentially lose and then have my wages garnished forever, or Chris, or anyone else involved. But again, we are looking at you can build a deck and see your old decks and share decks, save deck files and share them with your friends and take screenshots. That is being worked on.
So see if you're like 100% like kind of adamant that there's no way that you could be penalized in any shape or form if you do what you just said there, where like you bounce like the image server from somewhere else and do it that kind of way, but obviously you'd have to go to court for it initially. But if you're definitely sure that you'd win the deal or whatever, then I mean, what about like just getting the entire community to like crowdfund this like DN legal struggle, and then going from there? And because if you're gonna win the case, and it's just a case of, well, BLS doesn't want to go to court for it and stuff, which is obviously understandable, but like if it's like guaranteed that you guys will like win the deal or whatever because you've found like the legal loophole of like different server hosting and stuff, and why not just go through all that hassle like once and for all and get it done with? If you
because you used the key thing there was the crowdfunding from the Yu-Gi-Oh players thing. The caveat of which is that they're not going to. Yu-Gi-Oh organization has been around for 3 years, and we've had the donation option for 3 years, and it's been used by 2 people in total. So we would have to have the crowdfunding first, and it's not going to happen. Like, as much as I love the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and I love them all. They're a bunch of really great people, and every time one of them isn't, Josh Graham, for example, we can deal with it, and he's gone now. Or that DePatria guy, the giraffe dude, I can't remember his first name. He's gone now. Like whenever there's a bad egg, that egg is cracked. But they're also predominantly kids or like people 25 and under, and like they don't have money to throw away, and I don't blame them for that. Especially when the card game we're playing is so just ridiculously expensive. Freaking, you need like a playset of Desires and a playset of Dimensional Barrier, or if you're poor and want an alternative, you have Artifact Sanctum as a worse version of the same thing. And God, there's another one, the Toad. Obviously, that's an expensive card. Like, friggin' decks they used to like average like 600, and that average slowly seems to go up and up. And I will say, for people who are newer to the game, it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. Just before Synchros came out, before we had extra decks were averaging about $2,000. So consider yourselves lucky, even though you're still being squeezed like a lemon.
Well, that's I guess that covers everything. We've hit 80 people, so that's pretty cool. Anyone who's joined late, or actually, I mean, do you have anything else you want to add before I wrap up?
Quickly, just looking at the chat here. Currently, Dan, what would happen if Chris went to ask EA Games if there was a way for DN to work again? EA would laugh him out of the building. I've never paid more than $200 for a deck. I am assuming you've also never won anything bigger than a locals.
Wow,
can't SP anti-spell on Dev Pro. You can't. Well, that makes sense. Dev Pro also didn't let you use Justice of Prophecy in the end phase. So anyway, automated client problems aside, I don't see any other questions in there. So again, I'm here to answer more than give information freely. So who was the best DN admin and why was it? Okay, so he's actually the one writing that. That's really funny though. That's great. The best DN admin. That's a really hard question. You would think the answer would be Venomous Cat, because that guy took 22,000 admin calls. he took more than double the second most answered calls, and he also never once had like a appeal against him upheld. He was really good, but at the same time, there's a reason he never got senior, and it was more of a bureaucratic thing. The best admin probably was Konta. Konta Sukino, if you remember him.
Isn't he
I
the
think
one who
he also
banned
went
me?
by like Cyrus. I'm sorry?
Isn't he the one who banned me?
Maybe. I didn't even know you were banned, to be quite honest.
I got banned like 4 times near the end of DN's lifespan.
Why?
Quote unquote coaching, because I used to stream DN, and like the chat would tell me
yeah.
like, some things, and
You can probably blame me for that. I wrote a lot of the policies for DN, and one of the ones that I wrote was that if people were streaming the game, that if their chat coached them, they would run the risk of the chat coaching them and getting banned for coaching. If someone in your Twitch chat came in and told you like what your opponent's hand was or what cards you should be playing, or if you yourself asked the chat what card should I play while in a rated duel, and I made sure I was specific that it was a rated duel, that it would be coaching and that you should be given a 3-day ban for that.
it makes streaming a lot harder, but that's a whole other different story.
I figured the best way to stream would be have an alt, like a second account, as a watcher and stream the alt screen, so that what you see even on your stream right now, both the hands would be face down.
Just reading here. I think that's it.
902 was actually not bad for all things considered. He ultimately was removed for inactivity, not for like.
Omar wasn't bad for a 16-year-old, I guess. No.
Yeah. Does YGOrganization stream on Twitch? We do. We actually do. I don't do it as often as I'd like. I'm hoping to do it more in the new year. I didn't get all my equipment until about mid-December. But we stream locals on Saturday. My locals. It's not the most amazing thing to watch. And I streamed Legacy of the Duelist the other day for like 35, 40 watchers. That was kind of fun.
It's not fun at all, is it?
I'm sorry?
It's not fun at all, is it, that game?
It's actually not bad. The biggest thing is the grind, is just taking Cosmo into a duel over and over and over and over for the points so that you can open all your Monarch cards. Because it takes place like the day after the Felgrand structure came out. So there's no alternative White Dragon, and there's still 3 Pantheism. So if you're not playing Brilliant Monarch, you're wrong. Yep. And all of the Brilliant Monarch cards are in the pink-haired chicks packs. But Garnet is in one of the GX packs that's like at the end of the goddamn storyline. Like you have to beat all of the GX things to get to, I think it's Jesse Anderson.
For a Garnet.
GX. But yeah, that's where Garnet is. So I don't run Garnet. I just use Emerald, I think, the one that's like 1700.
All right. I think this is going to conclude it. We went over time to how I would have appreciated it. I think half an hour was my target, but an hour, I guess, is pretty good. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were limited.
Well, I mean, I tried to keep things kind of like, what's the word, short and punchy for like easy viewing on YouTube after, but there's just so much to go over and so much like important things to like talk about, so it's all good. I think this is gonna be it, guys. So thanks everyone for watching. If you've just tuned in late, or tuned in late, this will be up on YouTube as soon as I get off the stream. I'm just gonna export it straight away so you can check it out on Glasgow YGO, the YouTube channel. Thanks everyone who contributed with their questions, etc., etc. Shout outs to Harry Strick for giving me content. And of course, Dan here. Thanks.
The best shout out I've ever heard in my life.
Thanks for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. And having you on has been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I wanted just basically any Yugi tuber, but I'm happy it was you, because I actually really, really liked your Stickman video, as I call it. If you guys haven't seen it, I imagine you have because you're watching this guy's stream, he's got a video, YGOnetwork scammed, exposed with proof. Harry the liar, thief, scammer, fisher, and fraudster. It's only got 4296 views. It should have like another 0 on the end of that. That video is great.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. So that's it, guys. I'm gonna disconnect now, and you shall see us on YouTube again. Take care.